Hello everyone!
What a wonderful start to a weekend.
I know, isn't it? It's such a good day. It's a bit clouded over a bit now, but it's such a warm day.
Yeah.
The weather's been so nice.
I know, I walked past and you were out here having a cup of tea in the sunshine.
I know, I thought, why sit indoors when you can just...
I know, I was quite envious. I had
It's
emails
so
to
nice.
do and you were just sunbathing.
I was just chilling.
Lovely.
It was so nice.
Yeah.
The poodles are out, they're having fun, rolling around the grass,
Yeah.
they're loving it.
I do
Really
apologise if barking comes into play at any point in time. They're unpredictable and cause total chaos. We've got a special morning, haven't we, lined up?
We've got so much cool stuff coming up. So welcome to Skydancer Day 2022, everyone. Our theme today is animal journeys. So we're going to be talking all about birds of prey and some of the journeys they make, as well as all the kind of related stuff with them too. So yeah, we've got loads of good stuff. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, we've got music, we've got poetry, we've got stories. Of course, we're going to delve into a bit about the politics, because we can't have Skydancer Day centred around, of course, the iconic hen harrier without talking a lot about raptor persecution, which is still rife throughout our countryside. And we need to keep talking about it. We need to keep celebrating this iconic species so that we can be more aware and we can start acting even more to finally stop raptor persecution from happening in its tracks. So this is what today is all about. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, animal migrations, it's World Migration Day today. It never ceases to amaze me.
Every time I just think about it, and the thing I still don't really understand, I know they're like so much instinct is embedded in them when they're born, but how they know which way to go. Like, I get lost on the way to the shops, and then that makes me sound very old, but I do.
Sat-nav on.
Do you?
Yeah, no, literally,
Well,
I'll get
exactly.
lost going around the corner.
Yeah, and they go all the way from Africa.
Yeah.
Like a swallow, for example, comes all the way from Africa, goes to probably a similar area in the Congo, and then all the way back to exactly the same nest.
Yeah.
And, like, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's baffling. It really is.
Do you have a favourite migration story? Because for a long time, obviously, we didn't really understand migration and how it happened. And it was a lot of myths, a lot of folklore about where these animals disappear to at certain times of the season. So have you got a favourite myth or something like that?
I think one of my favourites is probably the swallow, actually, because I remember hearing a couple of years ago about how there was an old myth talking about how swallows used to disappear into the reed beds and hibernate in the mud over the winter and then reappear in the spring. And that's because a lot of the time, especially where they can, they will roost in reed beds towards the end of the breeding season. And I remember I thought, that's so silly. But then last year in July, I was on the Isle of Mull on the west coast of Scotland, and I was with my friend Ewan, and we were stood on this hill and looking over this reed bed, and he said, I've got a little surprise for you. And at about 9 o'clock in the evening, it was in the summer, and all these, I think it was about 300 swallows altogether, started circling above our heads. For an hour, they were just chattering and singing. It was amazing. And then all of them slowly dropped into the reed beds. And I just thought, actually, that makes perfect sense now, because they're all dropping into the reed beds. This is perfect. I can completely see this. And all of a sudden, one day when they migrate again, they'll disappear. So I can completely get that now.
So they've been swallowed up.
They've just sunk into the reeds.
Have you ever seen that thing in Harry Potter, the first Philosopher's Stone, where they go in through the three-headed dog, and they go in and they get sucked into the kind of that, I don't know what it's called, it's a magical weed of some sort, but it sucks them down.
Well, this is the thing, because I spend too much time outside, I'm quite uneducated when it comes to most things, so I've never seen Harry Potter. I know that's quite bad. Do bear in mind I had my first elderflower drink this morning, so yeah, Harry Potter's pushing it.
All right, we will rectify that immediately after the broadcast, where Indy will be subjected to hours upon hours of Harry Potter fan and film. So lucky you. This one is a good one.
Yeah. Have you got a favourite then?
Yeah, I do actually. I'm quite a big fan of the woodcock, and I love it because we sit out in the garden, and at this time of year we see them fly overhead, and it's amazing because you hear that sound, and they kind of just. They're on a mission. They're going somewhere. Drives my parents insane. I do it all the time. That's really good. It's like a drum beat. I like that. But for a really long time, no one understood where they went to. And of course, we do have a resident species of woodcock that stay here all year round, but we also have some which come and go. They typically arrive kind of around November, and they stay over winter to kind of make the most of the milder temperatures here, because they spend a lot of their summertime in areas like Finland and Russia, about 3,000 kilometres away. So a really long time. So what people used to think was actually, and they thought this about a few birds, was that they would fly to the moon. So they believed that woodcock would actually, rather than flying elsewhere, they would go up to the moon to spend their winter there. But they thought, because they're a relatively larger bird compared to some of our other species, like the goldcrest, our smallest bird, they thought that the goldcrest, weighing 5 grams, would actually ride on the woodcock's back and then would go to the moon and then come back in time in November. But when they actually figured out that actually the woodcock weren't, and they were just going to, places in Russia, they then couldn't understand how woodcock could fly over water. I mean, space fine, but water, they couldn't quite work that out. So actually, if you go down, and I went deep into the history books for this one, there's a story about a woodcock holding a log, holding a branch, and it would fly with that in its feet across the water, so that if it needed to rest at any point, it would land in the ocean and sit on this stick to give it a rest, and then it would kind of take off and fly up again. But obviously we know that to be not true, because they have such amazing ways of kind of conserving the energy when they're migrating, so that they can travel those distances.
I love that.
It's good, isn't it?
I tell you what, if I was that goldcrest and I had a Twitter account, that'd be my cover photo on the back of a woodcock on the moon.
I think you should do it anyway.
You know what? Harry Potter and editing woodcocks on the moon with a goldcrest on the back. That's amazing.
You should put yourself on top of the goldcrest.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Giving you ideas. We're going
I have dreams about this now. This is amazing.
Anyway, we've spoken about woodcock, spoken about swallows, of course, fantastic birds.
Yes.
And we'll be talking about other species as well throughout the course of this broadcast. But we have to really start with the hen harrier. And the biggest question is, well, exactly what is a hen harrier? And I'm really pleased to say thank you to Anishwa Kanchala for sending us this amazing video describing what a hen harrier is.
Hi everyone, my name is Anishwa Kanchala. I'm 7 years old and I just love nature. And my favourite group of birds are called the raptors. Raptors always have 3 things in common. First, the easiest you can find is their long wings. Second, their sharp, talented beak. And next, their amazing sharp talons. All these features are specialised in hunting, and the raptor we're going to talk about today is the hen harrier. It is in the critically endangered list, and it's on the break to extinction. Uh-oh, we don't want that. This is how they mate. They do a magnificent sky dance that has a combination of beautiful moves. The female mates and dance. The male just gets a chunk of meat and it flies off with it. The female follows, begging the male to drop it, and then the male drops it. Then the female catches it and feeds it to our hungry little chicks. And then the chicks grow up and it happens all over again. It's our responsibility to save these wonderful, beautiful birds from the brink of extinction. Signing off, Anishwa Kanchala.
How wonderful was that? Honestly, that just puts a smile on my face.
I know, he's so cool. And just the descriptions of everything.
Yeah.
Just absolutely on point. So brilliant. Loved
it's
it.
Great. I wish I could kind of write that poetically. It's beautiful. His wording, his delivery of it.
Loved it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anishwa, for sending that in to us. Anishwa, I'm sure lots of people are probably recognising you because Anishwa actually appeared on Britain's Got Talent recently and had a fantastic audition. So if you haven't seen it, go onto YouTube and check out Anishwa on Britain's Got Talent, because he's a wonderful young man who's so passionate.
That was such a good just piece that everything that he did, especially on Britain's Got Talent. That was such a good poem. That was so cool. I loved that.
Exactly. Well, getting the message out there to the wider audience is what we like.
That's exactly what we need to do, and he's just nailed it.
Exactly.
Perfect stuff.
Exactly.
Really
We're talking about getting the message out there. Later on in the competition, we'll be talking to Joe Lewis, who's going to be announcing the Young Writers competition. So hold on for that one, because that will be something you don't want to miss. But also send your questions in to us, because later on we'll be answering as many questions as we possibly can. You can make them as hard as you possibly want, and we'll utterly do our very best to answer everything you've got, whether that's hen harrier related, persecution related, or just general wildlife biology. So give us a shout and we will get back to you on that later on. I mean, hen harriers are pretty special, and I think when you see one, that's just a moment you're going to remember forever.
It really is. I think I still remember the first time I saw one, and it was on the Isle of Mull, and we were doing a tour. It was I think I was 13, and we were doing a tour with some guests who came on the island just to see hen harriers. And we're like, okay, this is a lot of pressure. And we did manage to see one, and it was really, really high up, but it was high over Lochnakeal on the Isle of Mull. And there's something really unusual. It kind of came over our heads and then circled higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. It was a female, and just went so high, just disappeared. It just, the dot got smaller and smaller and smaller, and just went completely just so high, you just couldn't see her anymore. And I'll always remember that, just because I was so jealous. I just thought, I wish I could fly. Yeah. I wish I could just like make the choice and go, do you know what? I am going to go to the moon, and then just go up. Yeah. So that was really cool. And then, recently, I remember last summer, I saw my first ever food pass, and I was so chuffed. We're going to see some footage of food passes soon. The male came in, he whistled the female off the nest, and it was quite a young male, and he kind of didn't wait long enough. But then I thought, okay, but I didn't think of that. And then the female came up, she turned around and went underneath, and then they dropped it. So my first ever food pass, they dropped it. But just I'll never forget that excitement, which was really cool. Yeah. But do you remember the first time you saw a hen harrier, actually?
Yeah, actually, the day after is when I met you for the first time. Yeah, so I went out, and it was really lucky. I was out in kind of North Wales, and under licence I got the opportunity to go and visit a hen harrier nest. And I'd never seen a hen harrier before, and we were waiting for the right time, making sure that we weren't going to disturb the adults, and both were off hunting. So we made our way cautiously into the nest, being very, very careful, and obviously, under all the restrictions, doing everything we can to, make sure that they're safe and happy and healthy, which is the reason why we went in, was to check their well-being. But to see these chicks, up close like that, the males and females have different colour eyes, That's how
I
you
learned this recently,
that's how you can differentiate between male and female, because some have blue, some have brown eyes.
Yeah, I learned that recently, because I think, with a lot of birds of prey, goshawks, my favourite, already mentioned it, their eyes, I think, as well as sparrowhawks, I think their eyes get more darker orange and even red as they get older, because they start off quite kind of see-through and grey and maybe a pale yellow, and then they change as they get older. But I didn't realise about that till hen harriers until recently. That's really cool.
It's really interesting. It's really, and it's not something you see until you can kind of get really up close and have a look.
Yeah, of course.
So that was great. And then obviously we kind of stepped back to kind of give the chicks some space, and we sat and we watched the adults come in, and they were doing food passes, and I didn't see a dance yet. Okay. It's still on my list.
I haven't either, so that's okay.
Okay, that's right. We'll go and see it together.
Good, yes.
But yeah, saw some food passes and kind of that communication and stuff, and I was up there with Yolo Williams and everyone else. We were kind of sat watching, in the rain with a cup of hot chocolate, and it was lovely. And then next day I met you, and it was still raining, and we got absolutely drenched. On top of a hillside, didn't we?
I think that was the coldest I've ever been. We were looking for the bearded vulture that was hanging around in the Peak District, and that was, it's a lot warmer now than it was then, even though I still wore the same pair of shorts in the freezing cold.
Yeah, that was really... I don't think I've ever been so wet in my life. No. I was absolutely drenched. It was terrible. I have drive home. Oh, yeah. Anyway, it was great, wasn't it? It was really,
it was really cool. So we've talked a lot about hen harriers now, so I think it's kind of time we see some. And up next, we've got a really cool film with music composed by a really cool group called Stronghill. And this film basically encapsulates everything this day's about. It kind of tells the story of raptor persecution and follows the life of these hen harriers. And big thanks to the footage from the RSPB, as well as Ewan Miles from Nature Scotland, and some images from Pete Walkden, who's also from Mull. Enjoy this, because it's absolutely beautiful.
Dance with me, my ghost in grey. Our end is close, most me your sky dancing skills with pure ballet past the kill to the ringtail on the wing. Dance as winter turns to spring. They hunt me, trap me, shoot me down. Help me, hear me cry out loud. Hear the sound of distant guns. Something evil this way comes. Scorched earth now where once you flew. Grouse mows mean there's less of you. They hide the bodies, hide the tags, deeply buried in peat hags. Blinding truth is like a lantern, for they can never hide the pattern. They hunt me, trap me, shoot me down. Help me, hear me cry out loud. Wall of death for Circus Cyanus, holes with spring traps all around. Evil gunmen, they still await them, for the Skydancers are earthbound.
More landowners and their serfs are now known for their true wealth-clad in camouflage or tweeds. They try to hide their evil deeds.
With bellies full of blood and pies, their heads are empty except for lies. But who are we to criticize this rich man's game of genocide? Genocide. Genocide.
They hunt me, trap me, shoot me down. They hunt me, trap me, shoot me down.
Help me, hear me cry out loud. Help me, hear me cry. Won't survive without your voice. Be the difference, be the choice. We may have wings, but we can't fly. We disappeared behind closed eyes.
How poignant was that?
Really, really love that.
You watch that, don't you? And it puts things into perspective. You know, it gives you goosebumps a little bit,
Yeah.
because you're watching these beautiful images of a bird that we all claim to love, we all claim to want to protect.
Yeah.
And yet that stark contrast between the images you're watching and then the words that you're hearing, you know, detailing, you know, a challenging but honest account of what is happening to this amazing bird of prey.
Yeah, yeah, it really is just really, like you say, poignant, I think. And there's a moment, one of my favourite bits of that film, I think it's about 2 minutes 30 in, and there's an incredible food pass, and it's not filmed close up, which is kind of nice because you get to see a bit of the habitat, and you just appreciate where these birds live and the conditions that they have to survive in, let alone with human interference. So they're amazing birds with so many natural challenges, but then when humans throw their muck in, it becomes even worse for them. But yeah, I think that film really encapsulates it perfectly. And that film is actually, the song is actually available for purchase for £2, and all the proceeds will go to Hen Harrier Action. And you can find the link to buy that in the description of this video, which is really cool. So in that film, we actually saw a bit of skydancing, especially on the last clip, which was really cool. But why do hen harriers actually skydance?
Well, it's all a bit of a performance, isn't it? No animal wants to invest any energy in anything that's not worthwhile. So, whether that's a physical adaptation, a behaviour, everything has to have a meaning and has to have a purpose. So obviously we're watching this acrobatic display thinking, wow, that looks really nice, that must be quite fun. And I'm sure, without anthropomorphising, obviously there must be kind of a rush for it, but there has to be a more important purpose. And obviously when we see them skydance, it's actually during their breeding season.
Yeah.
So the males are the ones which kind of do the skydance, and you see them, and it's essentially about impressing females. It's about saying, look at me, look at my skydancing, look at how acrobatic I am, somersaulting in the air, and look how fit I am, basically, because the better the dance, the more fit and physically active that bird is, and therefore, a female is more likely to choose a male partner who has the better dance, because it will suggest that he may be able to produce the best offspring. So yeah, it's all about fitness, it's all about competition, and that's what I really like about the animal kingdom, is that competitive nature in it produces these incredible behaviours and incredible kind of colours and features of animals, which to us look bizarre and look like what are you doing that for?
Yeah.
But it's actually all about showing that you're the best.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's great.
really cool. It's like I literally only just thought of this. It's kind of like a roller coasting Tinder profile, because they're just going up and down, and they're like, "Yeah, you see how long I can do this for?" It's really cool.
I like that actually.
Yeah.
We should change the name from Skydancer to Tinder profile.
Well, welcome to roller coasting Tinder profile 2022.
Learn something new every day.
And it isn't just hen harriers. I remember seeing golden eagles and goshawks doing something very similar. So it seems to be a very kind of like a bird of prey feature. But obviously, hen harriers are I think the ones who do it best. Really.
Yeah,
Really
exactly.
cool.
You've got the skylarks which go up,
Yeah.
which is great. I mean, not as much kind of acrobatics involved, but still. But all these different species have their unique ways of kind of showing off, and it's what makes the natural world so wonderful.
They do, and hen harriers. Sorry, goshawks. It is better.
Oh wow! Did you
I
just
know. I
admit
did
that?
just say that. We can cut this. We can't.
If you don't follow Indy on social media, he is Mr. Goshawk. You're always out watching goshawks and things like that. Although you do
Goshawk
have,
feather in my phone case, just here.
although you do have a massive love for hen harriers as well.
I absolutely do. I've got a soft spot for all birds. Goshawks, they are my absolute favourites, but any bird of prey, any day of the week, absolutely awesome. But yeah, like we saw there, we saw a lot of food passing in that film, as well as skydancing. But following on from that, it's obviously nesting, because that's kind of preparation. There's a fantastic area called Langham Moor. And it's recently been bought by the community of Langham to be able to restore it. It's a former grouse moor, an active grouse management moor. And they're now restoring it and kind of rewilding it to try and enhance it for nature. And connected to this is Tarras Valley, and they've got 2 or 3 hen harrier pairs on there. And Stuart Spray has made this really cool film to talk to us about it. And because we're hoping that we're going to get a nest cam installed there to be able to follow some of the progress. So yeah, this is a fantastic initiative, and they're making so much cool progress with it. This whole initiative makes me so happy. It's just exactly what we need. So yeah, enjoy this from Stuart Spray.
Welcome to Langham and the Tarras Valley Nature Reserve. If you've been following the story, you'll be aware that the area I'm standing in now was once a shooting estate, a driven grouse moor, and last year was bought by the community of Langham and is now being managed as a nature reserve. One of the most iconic species to be found on the reserve is, of course, the hen harrier. And thanks to Hen Harrier Action, who have loaned us a nest cam, this year we're going to be able to get fantastic views of the hen harrier chicks on the nest from the comfort of our living room. Here we are on Terrace Valley Nature Reserve, and this is the camera which we're going to be using. It's going to get fitted to loads more kit, but that's the camera.
Yep.
I'm going to hand that over to you.
Thank you.
For safekeeping. So what's the situation with the birds? I mean, obviously we've got to have a nest to put that
Yep.
camera on.
As things stand at the moment, we have 4 females and 3 males. 2 of the females a week into incubation. So we should be ready for a camera in around about 5 weeks time roughly.
With a bit of luck, we've got the choice of possibly 3 nests.
Yep, possibly 4.
We've got to work out how to get that camera up and running.
Yes.
Which I hope to do this week.
Right. Good luck. So I could say.
So that's it. All the equipment is connected up and tested, and very importantly, it's all working. So we've got the camera here with its own microphone, long cable which eventually connects to this little box of tricks, which beams back the images via 4G to the office. If the signal's not as good as it should be, up on the moorland we've got a booster which can be connected up, which is this green box here, and everything is powered by solar panels. We've actually got 3 of these, which should be ample to keep the whole setup working over the summer.
So I think we'll put the camera in once the chicks have hatched. The birds are very sensitive to disturbance when they're still on eggs, but once they've got chicks, they're much more kind of tied to the nest. So yeah, if Andrew's monitoring them, you know, even from a distance, you can tell from the behaviour when they've started feeding chicks, and that's when we could do a quick nest visit, get the camera in place and get it up and running. The camera would be in the nest, all this kit would be as far away as possible, just in case you needed to come in and make any adjustments, things like that. Plus it needs to be fairly well hidden. You know, hen harriers being ground nesters, it's trying to keep the disturbance to a minimum, trying to make sure there's no trail or something that a fox or something could follow in, you know, to make predation a problem. So yeah, we'll just keep this as far away as possible, but it's a good cable length, so I think we should be okay.
You've also got some news for us.
I do, yep. The licence came through just today, so really exciting because we were a little bit nervous as to whether it would arrive. The Nature Scott licensing department have been under so much pressure and are dealing with a lot, so we were a little bit touch and go as to whether it would arrive, but yep, it's all come through, so we're good to go.
We are good to go. So we've got the licence, we've got the kit. The only thing we need is a
There's the
a
birds,
nest.
yes.
The amazing thing is you can stand on the road with a smartphone or a tablet
And you'll see that.
and see the birds flying,
Yeah.
and you can watch them from the road onto the nest.
That'll be quite cool when they come in with food, to
Yeah.
be able to see the birds drop into the nest and feed them. Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be amazing.
And the harriers are such an important part of Lang and Moor. You know, it's always been that really key species, so it'll be fantastic to get, you know, be able to share it with everyone.
How brilliant was that? I absolutely loved that film, and just to see, I remember when the initiative was happening and like the crowdfunder was building and building. I think it was on Hen Harrier Day 2020,
Yeah.
I think it was. I remember you and Chris sat here pushing it, and then I just saw that, and when it finally happened, I was so pleased, and now it's so great to see that obviously Hen Harriers are settled, we've got the cameras hopefully going in soon, and I cannot wait to see how that place develops. It's going to be so
Yeah.
good. Thank you, Stuart, for that film. That was really cool.
Yeah, it was something when that project became, you know, well, was proposed. I remember hearing about it for the first time and thinking, you know what, like community conservation has so much power. You know, when people come together with a like mind, similar interests, similar passions, and you know, have a drive to do
Yeah.
something, it is amazing what can happen, and how quickly that's turned around. You know, Taris Valley has now, you know, it's fast becoming an incredibly biodiverse place, you know, all thanks to the work of that community. So, you know, anyone involved in that project, you know, absolutely well done. I admire every single one of you. You know, you've done an incredible thing and a total inspiration to all communities and all conservationists and, well, everyone out there, in my opinion.
Leading the way,
absolutely
leading the way.
Yeah, exactly. And having hen harriers, that's pretty lovely.
I know, that's not just a start. That's so good. That's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Well, it's a great opportunity, isn't it, to be able to get up close to them and try and understand more about their behaviour, because there's still that we're learning all the time about this kind of elusive species. And we're doing this across the country, in Langhamore, but in other places as well. And we're hoping, fingers crossed, this year to have a nest camera put up in mid-Wales as well. But we're just waiting for permission from Natural Resources Wales to approve it, and that can hopefully all go through, and then we will get some really detailed, you know, data about these chicks and how they're reared and, you know, how they fledge. It's going to be a really exciting thing, and these nest cams are incredibly important. But of course, you know, that research has to go beyond the nest as well. And thanks to your generosity in December with that crowdfunder, I'm really pleased to say that 3 chicks have been satellite tagged, so we'll be able to monitor their movements, understand how they're using their environment, where they're hanging out, and hopefully kind of make sure that they're safe. And obviously, if the worst does happen, we'll be able to kind of keep an eye on it. But it's a fantastic bit of technology that is really invaluable. But I urge you all to keep up to date with the ongoings of all these projects as well, including Taris Valley Nature Reserve. And actually, there's some really good news coming to that, because of course it's a big plot of land already.
It is a massive area already, but they are hoping to extend it, which would be really good. The cow agrees. So they're looking for 2.2 million for an extension. And I believe the date is not too far away, so please check it out. The link will be in the description again, so please donate whatever you can, because as we've seen already, it's so important, and as Megan said, so important to have community ownership of areas and to transform these areas from what they once were to what they are now, so and what will be. So it's so important, so please go check that out and support them in any way you can, because they are leading the way. It's inspirational. It's what we need to do. It's what we need to see, and it's what nature needs right now. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and you can find out all the information on their website, which is www.langham, LANGHOLM, initiative.org.uk/Langhamore. So keep up to date with all of their brilliant work.
Super cool. And of course, thanks to your generosity, as Megan said, we've also, as well as these 2 cameras, we've been able to purchase 3 satellite tags, which will hopefully be fitted to 3 birds, 1 in England and 2 up in Scotland this year, including hopefully the Langham birds, which will be really cool. So not only, as Stuart said, you'll be able to stand, you know, in the area of the nest, like a great way to connect with nature as well, just to be able to, on your phone or tablet, like he said, and be able to like have a view of the nest and then see the bird coming in, and then just the excitement that will be, and just be able to get to know the chicks and then follow them around, because they're all obviously named, so you can follow them everywhere they go, and you know, that will just be so good. So thank you so much for your generosity. I think that was last autumn when we had the crowdfunder then, so thank you so much, because that is absolutely, as Megan said, invaluable to learning what they're doing, where it's going wrong, and just what they're doing. And
yeah, we like to be nosy.
We do. We really
like
do.
To be nosy. Satellite tags are in hand. All that's left to do is put them on birds, and that couldn't happen without all of you. So thank you very much. But satellite tagging is a really kind of interesting concept, and it's really hard. Obviously, you know, birds that are flying around, you have to, you know, make sure that it's going to fit them. Different birds, different types of satellite tags, and you know, it is quite a complicated piece of kit, but it's amazing when it works out well. So Nigel Butcher from the RSPB is going to tell us a little bit more about it.
I'm Nigel Butcher and I work in the RSPB Science Department. My remit has involved a lot of tracking over the years, and also audio, video equipment. So yeah, tracking, I've been very involved, a bit of development, modification of tags, and also looking after our sat tagging programs and monitoring the data that we get from these birds. So we have a much smaller tag here for hen harrier in this particular case, but yeah, this can be much bigger for an eagle or a vulture, and they're all designed for their environment. So we have solar panels on the top here, so the batteries can be recharged. Much more robust antenna clearly for vultures. These loops here are where we anchor a harness. So the harness is made of Teflon tape, and it loops round as like a haversack effectively on a backpack of these birds. and these
Hello, here
are
I
switched on
am.
for a few hours a day.
Hi,
And
guys.
they transmit their information via satellite, an array of Argos
hear you,
satellites. And we can go on a website
Oh, here we
portal
are.
and review this data and
Is
make
that working?
decisions to
Yes, we got you.
the state or
Excellent.
health of the
Hello,
birds
hello.
through that
How are you?
information.
I'm very well, yes. How about you?
Thank you.
Hen harriers are
It's very
quite
hot very quickly.
mobile and
Is
no
the sat tag feature
specific
playing at the
patterns of
moment?
what they actually
Yeah.
do, and we had no idea
Cool,
how
cool.
far they went. There's a small
So,
percentage of
can I
our
go with
birds
easy
have
questions?
gone across
So,
the
I
channels.
think
So we had
yesterday we
birds in
spoke about Jenny,
Spain,
so how have
Portugal and
satellite
France.
tags,
The majority will move
help
around,
fight
so we had
against
birds crossing between
Yeah.
Ireland and Scotland and Isle of
Yeah.
Man, so
and of course
Wales,
your
quite a bit of
experience
internal
being there.
movement. But we're quite
Yeah.
erratic in their
Cool,
movements. So
sounds
yeah,
fine.
you no idea where any bird will
yeah,
go,
well,
and that's why
I'm
the
probably through a few
satellite data
questions,
helps you.
Jenny, as well, just,
But
I mean,
yeah, some of these
how
things
good
lead on to interesting stuff in terms of where they've gone, where they're nesting perhaps the following year, and also persecution attempts. Yeah, we found obviously some tags just completely disappear into a black hole. The data stops immediately. We've had tags. Rannoch is a classic example in Scotland where the tag stopped near winter. It was showing to us that the bird was dead. We had nothing from it until about April, when the snow melted and the tag then got sunshine, started transmitting again, and that bird had been killed in a trap, and it had been hanging tethered to that trap for a long period. But yeah, these tags, if they get sunlight, will transmit and be picked up. So if they stay on the ground, we find out the outcomes of these birds. Permissions are given by an independent body to tag, and tags are set at 3% body weight, so we can't put this big tag here on a hen harrier. This 9.5 gram will fit perfectly on a hen harrier. And also, yeah, people will be trained to fit these tags, and they are proven to be long-lived. We have a tag now on Bryony that was tagged in 2016, so although you'd expect the shelf life 3 to 5 years, if these things stay on birds and they get the right environment, then they will last and transmit for a long period of time. So yeah, we're now into the 6th year with that tag.
It seems to amaze me, the technology that keeps coming, and it's always improving and it's always getting better, and therefore there's always more that we're learning every day.
Yeah, it really is, and that was a really interesting film. Thank you, Nigel. It's good to see the difference between the two tags, obviously the ones that use for the bigger birds and the ones that use for hen harriers, but obviously so lightweight and the birds barely notice it. But yeah, thank you so much. That was really, really cool. And with us now to talk a bit more about the tags is my really good friend Jenny Shelton, who's works with the RSPB investigations team. How you doing, Jenny?
Hi guys, I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. We're just enjoying the sunshine.
Getting a bit hot.
It looks really nice there.
It's really nice. So tell us about these tags then. What have they kind of taught us, and how have they helped the fight against raptor persecution? What have we learned?
Well, they've really just been a game changer, to be honest, in sort of understanding more about these birds. It's kind of like switching on a light, where previously we'd been sort of, the birds fledge out into the wilderness, and then you never sort of hear from them and see them again, into these sort of fates unknown. But if they're carrying a tag which transmits every day, you can keep checking in with them and finding out where they're going, and also crucially, if anything bad is happening to them, which, as we know, this is turning out to be the case. So satellite tagging has actually unveiled that illegal persecution is happening to these birds on grouse moors, unfortunately, in connection with land managed for grouse shooting. They're either being killed there. We have found bodies, like Nigel mentioned in the piece, Rannoch found dead in a spring trap on a grouse moor in Perthshire. And also, when the tags suddenly cut out, sort of if it's been functioning absolutely normally and as expected, and then they just suddenly stop, that sort of sends alarm bells ringing as well. And this is, as we know, happening quite a lot over grouse moors too.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's really concerning, isn't it? I remember a case a few years ago, and thank goodness we had a satellite tag, because it helped, with a piece of a confusing puzzle. But do you remember when one of the satellite tags went along the motorway?
Yeah, that was it one of the eagle, Fred the Eagle, I think. And it's just like, this seems very odd. Why is a tag traveling along a motorway, and didn't it end up out at sea or something?
It ended up out at sea. So, who really knows what happened, because the tag went down, and then we tracked it along the motorway, then it went down again, and then it was floating in the ocean. So, obviously, being sometimes solar powered and things like this. It pops up when the sun comes down on it, and well, however, they're obviously different mechanisms to power them. But yeah, I mean, how do we go about kind of getting these kind of prosecutions based on satellite tag data? Is it easy? Obviously it's not, it's really tricky, but does it help kind of along that way?
It does, yeah. I mean, it's always really hard to get prosecutions and sort of find out who's actually done it. So you might have the body, for instance, but then finding out who's actually been responsible for that is the next step, and that's the really, really tough one. But certainly having that information is crucial, and that will essentially help hen harriers, I think, in the long term in this sort of big sort of battle to save them. Another case that sort of springs to mind, mentioning the eagle, was one from 2020. I don't know if you remember, was found in a river, and this tag, just by complete chance, some walkers had been out and found it just on the side of the riverbank, again in Scotland, in Perthshire, on a grouse moor. And they traced it a bit because it had a number on the tag, and it had been fitted to an eagle in 2016, which had gone missing and then never sort of heard of again until it washed up in this river, and it had been cut from the bird, clearly dumped in the river, and you just never would have known that unless the bird had been, wearing a tag. So you can see sort of the lengths that are being taken to sort of kill these birds, not just hen harriers but eagles too, and sort of dispose of the evidence.
That definitely kind of shows how useful tags are, because obviously, like you said, we would just not know this without any of this, without these tags. They're incredible pieces of kit that have been just so instrumental against the fight against raptor persecution. Like you say, probably aiding your job quite a bit as well, I imagine. So I think you were lucky enough to actually see some hen harriers being tagged, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was really lovely. Sort of similar to Megan's experience as well, like getting up close to those chicks and seeing, the different eye colours. It's just amazing. And they sort of look at you and stare at you, where have these people come from? And it was really cool. Like, and also sort of the female is just sort of sitting there like close by watching, and you sort of feel like you're entering their domain because they just live in these such remote places. And then we've kind of entered their world, really, and being eye to eye with them was just, incredible. And seeing the process as well of actually seeing the tag being fitted is so intricate. And the chicks are weighed and measured, and then the one with the longest wing is chosen to carry the tag because they're sort of robust and sort of big enough. But yeah, it's lovely, and there's like stitching involved and all sorts of amazing things to actually put the harness together. It's really amazing. But the fact that these guys are in and out in such a quick time as well, obviously to minimize the disturbance. But yeah, really special. Like, not many people get to see that, so I did feel really privileged.
That's really, really cool. I remember I was because we were chatting about this the other day, I think, Jenny, you're talking about goshawks, of course. And I remember I last year went down to the Forest of Dean to go do some goshawk bringing. Got invited by a really cool guy called Gareth Jones. Goshawks for the rest of the day, which is all I've ever dreamed of.
Have you watched them since?
Yes.
You have to think about that.
Not willingly. I haven't watched the same jumper that I wore because that's got swallows all over it and drawings. And just occasionally I just go, oh yeah. But that just to be there, that was just a fantastic, really, really cool day. So definitely sort of similar to your experience, which is really cool.
Cool. Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining us, Jenny.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Really appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
See you later.
Bye. Bye.
Now, I believe you were
with a certain
Yolo
Williams
Williams
rather
recently,
and you did some filming.
I was,
it was a pretty hilarious encounter. We spent a week on the Isle of Mull together about a month ago, and I got him to delve into his inner art in Yolo Williams. Art's a strong word, but actually it was a lot better than I thought. So enjoy Yolo drawing something on the beach on the Isle of Mull.
Right, here we are. I'm going to draw a hen harrier for Skydancer Day. Here we go.
wonky, but doesn't matter. There's the head, there's the beak, the tail right down here. Square it off at the end. There we go, and because it's Skydancer Day, here we are. Let's go to sky dance for you, look. There we go. There we go. Sky dancing hen area for Skydancer Day. I'll even sign it for you as well. There we go.
Hey, thank you very much.
I love that. What a legend Yolo is. He's just.
Do you know what? A legend
so
is a
cool.
good word to describe Yolo.
Yeah.
There's never a dull moment, and he always comes up with some kind of creative, unusual, out of the box idea, you know, and sticks with it. I mean, you know, he's Wonky Hen Harrier. Yeah, it's good.
It was. I'll be honest. It was a lot better than I was expecting. I really thought I was just expecting like my usual drawings, which are just like a bird, and you do like kind of like a little very kind of thin M really when I usually do in paintings, and I thought it was just going to be that, but no, we actually got a wonky tail as well, so that was really good. So thank you, Yolo, for that. That was brilliant.
Wonky tail and all. More could you ask for on a Saturday morning by Yolo Williams. Thank you so much, Yolo, for sending that in to us. Now, of course, you know, when we're talking about raptor persecution, the details of it, you know, it can be very challenging and quite complicated to get our heads around. So it's really important that we kind of gather all the facts and have, you know, conversations and listen intently to, you know, different ministers, different people in the government, different people in conservation organisations, to figure out the best solutions possible. You know, hen harrier decline we know is linked to driven grouse shooting, and we know that most hen harriers, the majority of the population, do reside up in Scotland, where there happen to be more driven grouse moors. So, you know, a lot of the efforts are focused in that area, and I think to talk about the subject in great detail, we've got a fantastic conversation coming up, which gives us an insight into what's happening within the Scottish Government at the moment, because their aim at the moment, which fingers crossed it all happens, and it all happens rather quickly, is that they're going to introduce a licensing scheme within the lifetime of the current government. So to talk to us a little bit about that, we've got Max Wisniewski from the Land Reform, and then we also have Minister Mary McCallan as well.
Hello there, it's great to be with you here on Skydancer Day. My name is Max Wisniewski. I'm the campaign manager for the Revive Coalition for Grouse Moor Reform, and I'm really pleased to be here today with the Government Minister responsible for grouse moor reform within the Scottish Government. Minister Mary McCallan, thanks very much for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here, thanks for having me.
Fantastic. So we've got a few questions we'd like to ask you for this little chat about you know, the fantastic bird, the hen harrier, which is what brings us here today, but also about wider grouse moor reform as well, and about how we can maybe see the impact of that on the hen harrier going forward. So we do know that there's a well-evidenced link between driven grouse shooting and the persecution of birds of prey like the hen harriers, perhaps golden eagles, but how do you think licensing grouse moors could help to end that persecution? How do you think it might work in practice, and when do you think it might come into force?
Yeah, so I come at this with a view that the vast majority of people working and living in our uplands and enjoying them do so with great respect for the land and for the wildlife that calls that home. However, there are a minority who would continue to persecute raptors, which is illegal and abhorrent, and that despite what have been concerted efforts by the government over a number of years to find ways to clamp down on that. So be that increased penalties brought forward in our animals bill last term, poison amnesties, vicarious liability, it persists. And therefore we're in a situation where self-regulation isn't going to work anymore. So I want to bring in response to Werity, and as part of the legislation we'll bring in this term, timeline-wise, I want a robust licensing scheme which will, in the face of any evidence of raptor persecution, be able to be removed, including permanently. And I think that will have an impact on those who would continue to seek to break the law. It'll have a very important signalling effect of a zero tolerance approach. But I actually think it'll also be good for the others who have always behaved and undertaken their responsibilities lawfully, to be able to say this is now assured as part of a licensing scheme.
And in terms of time period for when we're talking about, it's not in this year's programme for government, but we know it's coming up within this parliamentary term. Any indications of when licensing could come into force? Are we talking the end of the Parliament roughly, or a bit sooner perhaps?
I would hope for it to be sooner than the end of the Parliament. I think our programme for government spoke to implementing the terms of Verity as a matter of urgency, and that urgency is the speed with which we're seeking to work on it. I don't have a timetable for sure, because every parliamentary legislative timetable that isn't this year is still subject to ministerial agreement, but I'll be hoping it's sooner rather than later in this term.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a very complex issue. There's a huge number of aspects to licensing, and what it actually means. Are you licensing the Grousemoor estate, the business that runs the estate? So there's so many questions regarding that, so understandable there's due process to take there, but it's good to hear it's a priority as well. Yeah,
absolutely, and I think I want to have a wide consultation on exactly how it best operates, because of those complexities that you're quite right to identify. Yeah.
So besides Grousemoor licensing, there's also something else, a big aspect of Grousemoor management that is due to be licensed, and that's muir burning in Scotland. Muir burning for any kind of purpose, whether it's on Grousemoors or otherwise, is due to require a licence. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the reasons a licence could be given for muir burn. For instance, would it be biodiversity reasons, or could you get a licence if the purpose is essentially for shooting grouse for sport? Is that a reason enough for a licence? And just maybe talk us through a bit of that.
So yeah, absolutely. The development of that part of the licensing, like the licensing of grouse moors generally, is still under development, and the question of how you approach it. So do you approach it on a purpose by purpose basis, or do you set out from the outset saying there is best practice that can be followed here across the piece, and if we can work out with best evidence what exactly that best practice is and make sure it's being complied with across the piece, is that more effective than taking a purpose by purpose approach to it, if you see what I mean? But one of the things and that's all under development, but one of the things that I'm absolutely certain about from the offset is that protection of peatland specifically will have to be a very strong feature. I do not want to see burning on peatland, and I also want to make sure that we are as clear as we possibly can be about what peatland is in the definition that will be included in the licensing scheme, to make sure that it gets the utmost protection. But for me, I think a process which is much more about making sure that anyone who would seek to undertake the activity does so with best practice and is monitored in doing so. And again, we have the opportunity to remove licences or not renew them where it's not being followed. But all of that being considered very closely just now.
Great. And do we think that possibly that if the terms of the muir burn licence are broken, that could also have an adverse effect on the Grousemoor licence as well? Could they be linked?
Yes, I think that we have to look at it. These are separate issues, but they're all intertwined, and we have to be able to make them match up and support one another in the efforts that we're trying to achieve.
Great. And there also is, of course, a muir burn licence in place for out of season muir burn. I mean, is there, when you're looking at the options of potential licensing, is there a chance that that one of those options could be looking at the licence which already exists out of season and applying some of those standards across the board?
Yeah, I mean, all of that is under consideration, all being closely looked at as we develop both the consultation that will precede the legislation. But right now, one of the things that I'm very keen to do, and which Nature Scot are doing, is to understand the arguments. So, there's a broad spectrum of views, some of whom would take the view that it's very damaging for habitats, for wildlife, potential for wildfire. And then, of course, there's others who would say it's a tool against the spread of wildfire. It's important for habitats. It's important for habitats to feed grazing animals. So I want to come at this armed with the very best evidence across that spectrum, and that's exactly what we're trying to develop just now.
So an evidence-based approach.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Fantastic. And a question relating to hen harriers and birds of prey, could the Muirburn season, if it was to continue in some form or other, be shortened to reflect a change in bird nesting periods, particularly those of ground nesting birds like the hen harrier?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, because in a climate and nature emergency, as the government is seeking to make policy as we are across the piece, we're making it for now, but we also have to be aware of everything that the climate change that's already embedded is impacting. You know, that's the case here, it's the case in flooding, it's across the board. So absolutely, where evidence suggests that climate change or other factors are changing the circumstances that we're trying to work in, we have to be mindful of that. And respect for habitat and wildlife has to be a key component of any land manager using Muirburn.
Great. And one of it, we know that Muirburn can be used across different land purposes, not just for grouse moor management. One of the aspects of grouse moor management that is predominantly, if not solely, for the use of grouse is medicated grit.
Yeah.
Wondering if the scope of the licensing could actually be looked at for the purpose of maybe seeing an end to medicated grit use, or are we talking mainly about reform from your point of view?
Yeah, I mean, if I was relying on scientific views with regards to Muirburn, I'm relying on it, tenfold on medicated grit, because it's all about that impact on the wider environment. And I think that Werity was clear that more information was needed on that. And one of the things that we've done since Werity was published and in our response to it was ask SEPA to undertake a review of the leaching of it into the wider environment. That was undertaken, and it showed that where best practice is followed, the leaching ought not to be an environmental issue. So from my perspective now, my objective is to make sure that that best practice is being followed across the board. So we're not contemplating a ban on medicated grit just now, and it's what I'm looking at more is setting up an expert group to say what exactly is that best practice and what monitoring framework could we put in place to make sure that it's being applied.
Okay, so if there was widespread evidence of those best practices not being followed, then things could, your views could change down the line and be informed by that evidence.
And not even widespread evidence of it not being followed, individual evidence of it not being followed. If we can get right down to that granular level, that's what I would hope, and I think that's what a nature emergency requires of us.
Great. And onto the animal welfare side of things now, a big element of what Revive would call the circle of destruction which surrounds grouse moor management. On the animal welfare side of things, snares are often used on grouse moors or land managed for grouse moors. There's been a snaring review from the Scottish Government. We also know that Wales is planning to ban snares. In your point of view, is there a potential end to snaring being a possibility in Scotland going forward?
Well, that's what I'm questioning. So we have, as you say, the 1981 Act requires a review, statutory review every 5 years on the terms of that review. So we've undertaken that, and one of the outcomes of that was actually that snaring incidents are down in the last 5 years, so I'm bearing that in mind. But when I came into post and, looking to our friends and colleagues in Wales, I was asking myself, well, can we look beyond the terms of that review, and can we have a review which questions whether this ought to be banned? So we've asked the Scottish Animal Welfare Commission to look exactly at that. They'll look at the animal welfare issues, they'll look at the land management arguments as well, and I'm hoping they'll report before the end of this year.
Okay.
And I'll be hoping that if there are any things that need legislative framing, then I'm hoping to bring that into the bill for Werity. Basically, we already have some of the most robust snaring laws in the UK and Scotland. And, we're a rural country. I have lived in rural Scotland 99% of my life. And I understand that control methods are required, but what we cannot tolerate is suffering. And I think that's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of with the snaring review.
Yeah, I think that's key. I think I've recognised that in our previous conversations as well, that's something that you've certainly considering as part of that, and what some would call the cruel and indiscriminate use of snares. as an attribute of it. I think people will be quite pleased to see that that's a consideration in it going forward. And interestingly, it's part of the Werity legislation as well.
Yes, I'm glad, you're always looking what's the legislative vehicle that I could bring this into if I needed primary legislation.
Yep.
So that's what I have in mind.
It's really good to know. So on further wildlife, enforcement of wildlife laws, the Scottish Government is looking to appoint a task force to look into increasing powers of the SSPCA to help investigate wildlife crimes. I'm just wondering if there's any potential updates on that, or maybe where we are in the process for that.
Yes, it's imminent, and I wish I could tell you today, but we are just finalising the last few points for the membership. But I'm hoping to be able to make an announcement about that in the next few weeks. And actually, I think I may have said that it was the snaring review that I was hoping would be done by end of this year. That in fact is the SPCA review. Right. So membership very shortly, hoping to announce, and a response to that this year.
Great.
Yeah.
It's very good to know. Watch this space then, basically.
Yes.
And finally, Minister, we're wondering, of course, on Skydancer Day, if you have a favourite bird of prey, whether you've actually, hopefully not a leading question, whether you've seen a hen harrier before, and maybe just talk about your interest in bird watching and birds of prey in general.
Well, it's interesting. So I spend a lot of time walking in the hills, and I don't know if I could say for sure that what I have seen in the distance is a hen harrier. They are beautiful yet elusive. But what I have been enjoying recently is that there's a pair of red kite nesting in trees just at the bottom of my garden. So the camera roll on my phone is absolutely filled with terrible videos of me trying to capture their beautiful wings and their lovely markings underneath, and they swoop really low down to you.
Yeah.
Terrible videography, but enjoying them nonetheless.
So some pixelated brilliance going on there.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I've been told that the Skydancer team can also, if you were ever interested, help to actually locate and see a hen harrier for your first time if you ever wish to do so.
Great. I love that.
I'm sure we can sort something out. Minister Mary O'Callaghan, thank you so much for joining us here. It's been great speaking with you, and thanks very much on the Skydancer Day. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
That was a really, really good interview, I thought. Thank you so much both for taking the time to do that, because I think it's really good, because often in this kind of industry, I suppose, and especially with the whole raptor persecution and grouse-moor kind of issue, we don't really get much progress some of the time. I think we're a lot of the time just banging our heads against a brick wall. But when we hear, ministers like Minister Mary O'Callaghan talking about, progression and giving us dates and things to follow up on and things to kind of look forward to, it is a big spirit lifter, because you think times are changing. Hopefully things will happen soon. And like that was just mentioned with the licensing, that should have a massive, massive impact, hopefully, on at least Scotland for now. Hopefully that can be extended down to England, because that will really, hopefully make gamekeepers think twice before making some of the decisions that they do make. Yeah. So hopefully, because something really needs to change, because the recent statistic that I've got here is 70 hen harriers have either been shot, trapped, poisoned or gone missing since 2018, and that is 70 too many. So something needs to happen very soon, and it looks like hopefully times will be changing in Scotland soon, which is really good.
Yeah, it's important to point out though, that figure, 70 since 2018, having gone missing or confirmed, killed. Those are the ones that we know about. Those are the ones that have had satellite tags on. Those are the ones that, we found bodies of, we've found evidence of. And, grouse moors in particular are largely huge expanses of land that, we don't always have that much access to. Obviously in Scotland, we, freedom to roam rights and things like that.
Yeah.
But we're not there all the time monitoring this. And this is one of the big problems, because we don't know how many birds are going down and where they're going down all the time. So 70 is probably, and it genuinely pains me to say this, is probably the tip of the iceberg. So, this is why satellite tagging is, becoming more and more important.
Yeah.
And we kind of make those estimates and kind of do what we can. And that's why we need brave politicians. We need people, MPs, SMPs, to stand up and say, actually, just because we did this before doesn't mean we do this now, because we've learned our lesson, we know better, and we can move forward with conservation and the environment in mind. We have to be able to change our minds, change our perspectives to accommodate these birds, allow them to share our environment, and encourage them to share our environment.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, we need, not only you know, the conservation bodies and conservationists and, you know, everybody watching, everyone to get involved, we need ministerial action. We need the governments to take action and to put their foot down and say enough's enough, because quite frankly,
it is.
Enough is enough.
Yes, it really, really is. And like you say, it is just, this is absolutely scratching the surface with 70, because obviously the hen harrier population in the UK, obviously it isn't massive, but it's bigger than that. So yeah, it is sadly just the very, very few that we know about. But of course, 70 too many, and any more than that is still too many. But yes, hopefully more satellite tags and more funding, we can find out more about what's going on, even though we obviously know a fair bit. We just need to just find out and make this and just stop it. We just need to stop it, and hopefully the licensing will work towards that. And if not, hopefully further action will be taken to stop it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, during those 40 minutes during that interview, we've actually been doing a bit of bird watching ourselves. And there's a little river that just goes behind the grass here. And unfortunately, Megan didn't hear it because she went inside.
Oh, I nipped to the loo quickly.
Yeah.
I quickly nipped to the loo.
I came back on here with my sunglasses on, quite a smug face, saying I've just heard a kingfisher.
And it's a kingfisher that uses the river.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen it yet. And I'm not bitter. I'm really not. But I'm quite.
Yeah.
I'm quite put out by. I was put out by that. But then you told me something even worse.
Massive oak tree here out in leaf, gorgeous green leaves, very wiggly branches, and on one of them, a lovely female sparrowhawk. Also, that was about 20 seconds after the kingfisher. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, it pains me to hear it a second time even more.
Does it?
Yeah, it does.
Does it actually?
Yeah.
Well, I've never had a white-tailed eagle over my house, and I think you have.
I have had a white-tailed. Well, yeah, there has been white-tailed eagles over the house, but again,
oh.
I wasn't here to see it. I got a text because I don't live here.
Yeah.
I live about 20 minutes away, so I get a text message saying, "Oh, white-tailed eagle on the garden list." And I was there the day before, but I missed it. So I keep missing things in this garden.
I'm so sorry for bringing it up.
I'm like, genuinely, I don't know what is going on. I think I'm just going to set up camp here for the rest of spring, and just, you know, keep adding things on. Because, you know, we've got mandarin ducks, though. That's cool. Mandarin ducks are here. Yeah. A couple females, a couple males. That's pretty cool.
That's nice. Obviously, the tawny owls, we were sat outside last night listening to the tawny owls screeching. That was really nice.
You know, I love this area because, you know, there is some amazing conservation going on. And, you know, just when you hear the birds behind us, it's beautiful. And the dawn chorus here, obviously, it's kind of slightly on its way down now. We've kind of reached that peak like a week or two ago. But it's still absolutely beautiful. You can hear it all around. You hear the woodpeckers drumming. It's all going on. And it's, you know, really, really exciting. And it's all thanks to, you know, some really amazing conservation efforts that we have white-tailed eagles able to fly over our heads. You know, in 2019, Royal Dennis Foundation, Birds of Poole Harbour came together and started releasing white-tailed eagles on the Isle of Wight. It caused, you know, such excitement across the communities. It, you know, it made national headlines.
It did.
It was really exciting. And I actually got the opportunity to go and visit those birds before they were released out. So, you know, they spend a bit of time kind of in these kind of, I don't know how to call them, in these large pens, I suppose, to get used to the environment, to get used to their surroundings. They've done the journey down from Scotland, and they spend some time just to acclimatise to their new home before they're released. And we got to go and have a very quiet, a very sneak peek.
Nice.
But to get to see them up close was really exciting. I've not yet seen them flying around. Still on my list to do, still a sore subject, but hopefully I'm going to ask Birds of Poole Harbour whether I can go out and join them to go and see one soon, because they're a fantastic, you know, species, and it's fantastic to have them back here. We know that they were previously, you know, in the UK, in the south of England. We know that they were once all around our coastline, but they went extinct in the south, and it's brilliant to have them back. And when I'm talking about MPs that we need to have, you know, brave MPs kind of sticking their neck out for these species, you know, that's something to be celebrated. But I have to say, you know, not all MPs feel exactly the same way. And recently there's been obviously controversy. A Dorset MP Chris Lodder, came out on Twitter saying eagles are not welcome in this constituency. And it later came out that in the 2019 election, where he got his position, £14,000 of it was funded by a shooting estate. So, you know, he's obviously kind of getting a lot of money and support from shooting estates, which you know, aren't a big fan of raptors in the UK, and therefore, you know, that could have catastrophic impacts. You know, we know that one of the birds, one of our white-tailed eagles in Dorset, sadly died. There's going to be a toxicology report done by the police, and Chris Lodder took to Twitter to say that that wasn't necessarily the most important priority, which I think is entirely backwards and incredibly concerning. But you know, other than that, you know, terrible case, we know the benefits that white-tailed eagles bring. There was a report that was released about mull very recently, and the benefits of these animals. They bring in somewhere between 4.9 and 8 million pounds in tourism, and that's just one small island. They supported 160 full-time jobs and put 2.1 million pounds into local income. You know, and if that's not a benefit for conservation, a benefit for having these species back in our landscape, then I don't know what is. So, you know, I'm a big fan of everything that Birds of Poole Harbour and the Royal Dennis Wildlife Foundation do. Absolutely fantastic. But I can't, you know, speak about only the white-tailed eagles because there is a bird which,
brace yourselves, this is cool.
Which I really love. She's very special to me, and if you watch Self-Isolating Bird Club, you probably know her very well as well. She's called CJ7, and in the midst of lockdown, she was one of the reintroduced birds. We haven't had breeding ospreys in the south of England for over 200 years now. And she was reintroduced, and in the lockdown of 2020 she was there and she was on the nest and she started demonstrating breeding behaviours, but sadly there was no male and she ended up laying an egg that was unfertile, sadly. But it was a good opportunity, it was a chance for hope, and we thought next year, 2021, a male might come along and there may just be breeding ospreys. So what happened? Well, CJ came back from Africa at the right time, CJ7, and she was hanging around a nest doing all the breeding preparations, all that behaviour that you typically expect. Did a male show up? Yes, he did, but he was rather late. He was a bit late in the season, so sadly it wasn't successful, and we didn't have breeding ospreys last year, but this year, both arrived on time, they are sat on eggs, and I genuinely couldn't be more excited because I've got a real soft spot for CJ7. I feel like she's been through a lot, and to be, you know, such a symbol for, you know, ospreys in the south of England is incredibly exciting. But anyway, enough rambling about CJ7 and hearing about it from myself. We want to go over to Paul Martin from Birds of Poole Harbour to tell us exactly how special the raptors are in the south of England.
My name's Paul Morton from the Birds of Poole Harbour charity, and talking about white-tailed sea eagles, we're now in a really fantastic position here in Poole Harbour where quite a few of the birds that were released on the Isle of Wight as part of the reintroduction scheme over there are now arriving in Poole Harbour, visiting on a really regular basis, exploring the harbour and South Dorset, and are kind of making themselves at home, and the impact has been phenomenal. We know sea eagles used to be here, we've got the historical records of them, you know, breeding on the southern shores of the harbour. But now they're returning, having not been here for 250 years. We're out on a boat this morning looking for ospreys and for other birds in and around the harbour, and obviously fingers crossed eagles. But with this interest and with the arrival of the birds into the harbour, you know, we're seeing increases in bookings, you know, month by month, actually week by week at the moment, because there's this real interest in people wanting to learn about reintroductions, recovery of species, and when you can take them out into this incredible landscape and show them white-tailed sea eagles, which is something, you know, I've never in a million years have dreamt we've been able to do, well now we can, because people are brave enough to take these projects on and actually reintroduce species like eagles. You know, we're now in a position where we can take people out, show them that, obviously hopefully breeding ospreys soon as well, fingers crossed, and the whole dynamic has now changed. It's just a really exciting time.
Dorset is a birthplace for eagles. They've been here since goodness knows when and hunted to extinction in recent times, really, in terms of human history.
They're just so beautiful, and we as a human race have just been so horrible in wiping out these incredible species. We should be doing everything we can to put our faults right.
Yeah, we're here telling other countries how they should be preserving all of their predators and their top hunters and stuff, and yet we can't even reintroduce an eagle, which, to be honest, is going to have quite a minimal impact on the local area anyway.
But
it's just crazy.
Huge amounts of just satisfaction in seeing that beautiful bird.
I actually got the opportunity to go on the Birds of Poole Harbour boat when we did. Chris and I did a Buy a Bits campaign. It feels like a long time ago now, but we went around the country. We ended it in Poole Harbour, and we went around, and it was amazing. The bird life was incredible, and it was such a wonderful day out. If you're ever in Poole, I highly recommend going to see Birds of Poole Harbour and going to see Paul Morton, because he's a fantastic ornithologist, and yeah, it's a brilliant experience to go and do. It really is.
That looks really nice. I love the whole vibe of that film. Thank you to Jenny Shelton who filmed that. Thank you very much, because I just get a very, very nice kind of welcoming feeling towards these birds, and just a very kind of all the communities involved. You saw the people there talking about how much they enjoyed it, and I just love that. It's kind of similar to Langham. It's the whole community aspect and just appreciating nature, and obviously helping species recover, which is really, really cool. And someone else who's been on this boat trip and joining us now is author Jill Lewis. How are you doing, Jill?
Hello. Yeah, doing very well. Thank you for inviting me here.
1 second. There we go. We got you back. I had to press the button. There we go. How are you?
Yeah, lovely to see you. Looks very nice and sunny where you are.
It's got a bit hot very, very quickly. I think I'm going to get a bit sunburned. Maybe. The sun's coming out. So tell us, how have you been, and what have you been up to? Have you got any new exciting books on the horizon? Anything Skydancer related?
Oh yes, well, I've got one new book that's just come out, which is actually behind me, called Song of the River, and it's about the skull of this little animal, the beaver, because as we know, beavers are really important to bring back habitats and wild habitats. But I was fascinated that beavers don't just bring back wild habitats, they bring back these wild soundscapes that we've been missing, all the creatures that come back, all the amphibians, all the birds, and the sound of the river. So that's another, and it's all related to obviously Skydancer Day, the hen harrier, and bringing the wild back as well.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I was having exactly that conversation with Gary Moore, who's a fantastic sound recordist and so brilliant on his birds and bird song. And I was literally having this conversation with him yesterday about soundscapes and how the fact that, you know, we notice the visuals of something missing and we notice evidence of when something's there, but we do forget sounds quite quickly. And iconic things like the beaver and that soundscape bringing that back in, I think that's a lovely aspect to conservation.
Absolutely. I absolutely love bird songs. My favorite thing right now, like we said earlier, got so much bird song here because it's kind of, the height of spring. Goldfinches, we had the woodpecker drumming earlier, and a cuckoo this morning, which was really cool. So yeah, I love bird song. It's really cool. So that's a really interesting topic. I remember reading some of your books, Jill, in primary school. So this is like a proper looking up to a big mentor moment, because I always loved your book. So thank you so much for being here. But I think you're here to talk about the really cool Young Wild Writers competition. So tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to be able to announce the third Young Wild Writer competition. It's in essence, it's for 3 age categories, for young, junior and senior. And we're going to be asking young people to write up to 500 words all about this year's theme of animal journeys. So when we think about animal journeys, the hen harrier itself makes a journey. It breeds up in the uplands, and in the winter they fly south to roost, often in our sort of lowland farmlands and along river valleys. But for young people writing, they don't have to think about animals which make these huge journeys. It could be an animal journey in the garden. It could be a hedgehog. It could be a slug. It could be a tiny ant. Or they can write about animals that make journeys thousands of miles, like our European eels, which mature in our wetlands and they breed in the Sargasso Sea, or Arctic terns, which travel all the way around the world. So it's really up to each child what they want to write about. And they'll be able to find out more details on the Hen Harrier Action website. They'll see a little poster like this, and there'll be the details of how to enter at the bottom. And the deadline is the 10th of July, and the winners will be read out on the 24th of July at Wild Justice's Hen Harrier Festival in Adlington Manor in Cheshire. And there's some really fabulous prizes, book tokens, book goodies, and for the overall winner, I'll be doing a writing workshop with their school, so that would be really exciting. But I think for me, why I think this competition is so exciting is because words and art really sort of can change hearts and minds. We've seen Anishwa and on Britain's Got Talent talking to millions of people about nature. We had a beautiful artwork from Benjamin Fallow, who drew this beautiful hen harrier for the poster for Skydancer Day. And that's why words are really powerful. You know, they can change hearts and minds. And if you can do that, it sounds quite dramatic, but I think you can change the world.
No, I genuinely couldn't agree more with you on that. And I think, you know, often we think about conservation as being quite conventional, you know, but actually the creative arts have such an important role to play, you know, whatever that is to you, whether, you know, it's drawing, whether it's knitting, whether it's singing, poetry, you know, whatever you'd like to do, because it helps engage a new audience and it tells stories in a new way, and that is quite a superpower.
Definitely, you know, it makes us care. You know, I often think sort of sciences are the way we understand the world, but art is our emotional connection with it. And if we don't have that emotional connection, we won't care, we won't want to protect something. But if something really hits us there, then we want to care for it, we want to protect it. And just going back to what you were saying about the Poole Harbour, I had a lovely trip with the Poole Harbour birds, going to see the ospreys, my favourite bird. But on that, I was chatting to a teacher who had been on that trip, and Poole Harbour take lots of schools out and engage the local school children in Dorset with these wonderful birds and Poole Harbour habitat. And a teacher was so angry about the poisoned white-tailed eagle. And this is where it really engages. So teachers have been to see this, and they can say, well, actually, we want white-tailed eagles in Dorset. This is what we want. We're a constituency of Dorset, and this is what we want. So I think this is really, Poole Harbour birds do great work there.
Yeah, they absolutely do, and all voices matter, don't they? It's children and schools, communities are saying it. I always use this analogy that, you know, ultimately we're in the driving seat. If we turn the steering wheel left or right, ultimately, eventually, the wheels are going to have to turn that way as well. So, you know, it's a process, and it might be happening slower than we would like it to. However, if we keep pushing, something has to change.
Definitely.
That's really good. I like that analogy. I've not heard that before. I'm pleased that you don't mind. That's really cool.
I'll let you borrow it.
That's really cool. So you mentioned the writing competition there, Jill, which obviously is launching today. But what about previous winners? What have they gone on to do?
Well, previous winners, we've had some really wonderful writing, and several pieces have had a big impact. And one piece in particular, which won the senior section of the Young Wild Writer competition, was won by Neha Naan, and her poem is absolutely beautiful, and it was so powerful that it helped protect the allotments and the wild space in London near where she lives. And that really just shows the power of words and the power of competitions like this that help take these words out there and give children a voice to be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're actually going to hear that poem in a little minute. So we'll say thank you so much, Jill, you know, for joining us.
Absolute
pleasure.
Wonderful
to catch up and see you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
We'll see you soon. Thanks, Jill. Bye. So obviously Jill just mentioned there about that fantastic poem by Neha. So I won't leave you waiting anymore. We've got a lovely film coming up for you now by Annie Aloysius and Neha Naan, who tells us about the poem and a little bit about the allotment that they managed to save.
Dance with me, my ghost in grey.
So there's 37 plots at Park Road allotments, and in its heyday all were cultivated with fruit and vegetables and wildlife and people, and previously the site was looked after by Hounslow Council, and they let the vacant plots and maintained the paths and the water and that sort of thing. And then in 2015, the Duke of Northumberland, who owns the land that had previously been leased to the council, took back ownership. And I think he primarily did that to enable him to develop the land. So in 2 years later, he put in a planning application for 8 or 9 big 4 or 5 story blocks, which would have predominantly been flats for rent, with about 120 flats. He argued that he needed the money as enablement to maintain Syon Park. but it would have meant the complete destruction of the allotments. He, in the original application, proposed to re-site us in Syon Park, which is just across the wall, but he wanted to put us in the middle of Capability Brown landscape, which Historic England, amongst others, were really not keen to let happen. So what became really clear is that it would have been a loss of a really loved asset of community value, a loss of habitat and wildlife, as well as the 37 plots. And what we were being offered wasn't equivalent. So the inspector upheld the appeal, and we hoped that that may be the end of it. But what he's actually done is just given us 6-month rents with a lot of uncertainty. He hasn't let us re-let any vacant plots. So a lot of people, you know, have given up because it's really hard to plant if you don't know if you're going to be able to harvest. So over the years, the plot has become more of a wildlife haven, loved by the people that are still gardening, but impossible to restore to its previous glory as a fully used allotment site without the permission of the Northumberland estate. He then waited 3 years and put in another planning application, this time for similar sort of high density flats, but only on 2/3 of the land. And so we mounted another campaign, and there was a lot of community support to maintain this green local open space. And that's when Nea wrote her fabulous poem that got so much publicity across the country, and thousands of people signed our petition. That it's not just a few plot holders that love this place, but I think in principle people understand the value of these green open wildernesses that are so vital to cities especially. So that second planning application was heard in 2022, and it too was rejected. And we're waiting now to see whether they decide to appeal again. But what we're really hoping for the future is that maybe Hounslow could take back management and we could reinstate all the allotments, or that maybe we could approach the estate to buy it. As agricultural land, it's capped in value, and maybe we could take it back and run it as a community to maintain what people love about this site.
My patch of green in the urban jungle is down the meandering, river-like road from the woodland of apartments that I call home. It's a peaceful, hidden oasis of shining verdant green, amidst the squawking of the birds that are cars and machinery. My patch of green in the urban jungle is tended to by many species of people. It has been cultivated to a point where its bounty is a rainbow array of Mother Nature's gifts. Harvest is all year round, because our harvest is a feast for the eyes as well as the stomach. My patch of green in the urban jungle is at the heart of my community. As an allotment, its purpose is to bring people together and let us make friends while protecting nature. But how can it do that if it's not there? My patch of green in the urban jungle is under threat from redevelopment, doomed to become a finite forest of lifeless beige buildings, chock full of incessantly twittering TV screens and devoid of bright flowers and birdsong. I have a patch of green in an urban jungle, and I would like it to be preserved. The secret lavender patch behind the shed, the plot where the nursery children grow strawberries, the tree with branches low enough to swing from, and the waist-high grass we run through. They are dear to me and to everyone else that knows about them. Britain is losing its green patches and becoming an urban jungle. Soon, children won't know what it's like to swing from low branches and hide in lavender beds, and the only birdsong they know will be the chattering of their phones. Let's give the children of tomorrow a future in which nature is key, and protect the little patches of green in this vast urban jungle.
Dance with me, my ghost in grey. Our end is close most every day. Blue-grey circles in the sky. The future's bleak for you and I.
How? Do beautiful was that? That was
Lovely.
such a good poem. Such a good poem. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for writing that, obviously, and the winner of that was from 2020, I believe. But yeah, thank you so much, Nay, and I'm so glad that the allotment plots are safe at the moment. Hopefully they remain that way.
Yeah.
And yeah, so obviously please check out the Young Wild Writers competition that we just spoke to Jill about, and that was a really great example of what you can actually do to save it.
Exactly. Get
really
creative.
cool.
And animal movements can be whatever it means to you, like
Yeah.
Jill said. So,
Yeah.
you know, whether that is a migration to the moon or into the reed beds, or whether that is
Kingfisher whizzing up and down the river.
Did it really happen, Arnie? I'm not entirely sure. You know, whether it's a butterfly or
Yeah.
you know, it's a different type of movement. That's the fun thing about this kind of stuff, is because you can make it your own, and the impact that it can have. It could save an allotment. It could save, you know, it could start a community project. It could start another Langham Moor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How good would that be?
I might even write on myself, actually. I'm
Really?
going to write the Goshawk movements from catching a pigeon to eating it.
Yeah.
Over and over again.
Gruesome.
Why not?
Gruesome.
That's
but
my
great.
jam.
Yeah, I want to read that one. That sounds good.
Awesome stuff.
Anyway, you guys have been sending in your questions throughout the course of the broadcast, and we have a few of them now, so we're going to go through them. So shall I start off with
Go
a
for
couple
it.
of them? Somebody has wrote in to ask, how many breeding pairs of hen harriers are there in the UK at the moment?
So we have roughly 775. That's what we think the estimate is at the moment. And obviously in England especially, I think it's very much down to what it should be. And I think recently there were 2 hen harrier nests in the Peak District where I think it was the females that went missing, and the nest got abandoned. After that it was the males that went missing, one of the 2. And yeah, so now we've sadly lost those 2 nests, which means the number is even lower. But yeah, at the moment it stands at 575.
575, yeah, exactly, and potentially fewer. Again,
Yes.
it's really hard to. These are elusive, secretive birds. Obviously, they're ground nesting. They're quite kind of tricky to really kind of
Living in
count.
hostile environments as well,
Yeah.
out in the moors, and yeah,
Yeah.
but we aren't going to find them all, which, to be honest, may just be a good thing too. But yeah, 575 at the moment, but obviously that number could well be
It's an
less as we speak. Who
It's
knows?
very, very much an estimate. Another one is, how big is a hen harrier?
So, as they stand, roughly, it's 47 centimetres. Sorry, 48 centimetres as they stand up, and then the wingspan is not too far from a buzzard, which is 100, and their wingspan's 110 centimetres. And I suppose we kind of talk about differences as well, because that was another question, difference between hen harrier and buzzards. Obviously, male hen harrier, very slate grey plumage, almost completely grey bird, but they have a little kind of a white rump on the tail, which is very characteristic of them. And then the females are completely brown. They kind of look a bit similar to buzzards. The head shape is very different. They kind of got a bit of an owl-like face, because they kind of hunt in the similar habitats to owls, listening out for voles. So they need kind of a satellite dish face to be able to hear. And yeah, the female hen harriers are very brown, but they also, just like the male, have that white rump on the tail, which is often very characteristic when they're quartering over a moorland or a marsh looking for voles or small birds to eat. And you'll see that white rump just flash occasionally, and it's absolutely brilliant. But yeah, kind of similar size, but yeah, the hunting techniques are very, very different to buzzards. It's that low quartering, and all of a sudden they hear something and they'll dive in and catch it. So yeah, really, really nice difference.
The females are often referred to as ringtails, aren't they?
Yes.
Because if you're below a female and you look up, they have rings on the underside of their tail, giving them that ringtail name. So yeah, sometimes, you know, a similar size, brown. The females are brown, so can sometimes be confused as well. But like you say, the behaviour is very different, and if you look out for that iconic ringtail, then that should give you an indication. And a lot of the other questions we've been getting is, you know, where do we see them? Where are they most kind of prolific? Obviously, most of the population is up in Scotland, like I mentioned earlier, but you can see them in parts of Wales, in northern England, and even on the Isle of Man as well.
Nice.
And obviously Mull.
And obviously Mull, yeah, really good population on Mull.
Islay and all that place.
Yeah, all really good spots, really nice. And yeah, obviously very kind of like moorland habitats is where they nest, but they actually, which may surprise some people, they actually nest on the ground, which obviously not all birds do, but some don't. But that can sometimes pose a problem, can it? Especially with dogs can often disturb birds of prey and any ground nesting birds. And where I live in Sherwood Forest, this can be sometimes an issue with birds like woodlarks and nightjars. And there are sometimes laws in place keeping dogs on leads during the breeding season, which usually spans from March to about August, because sometimes birds can have, especially woodlarks, can have 2 or 3 broods. and their nesting period doesn't just go through spring, it goes into late summer as well. So it is really, really important to keep your dogs on a lead, especially this time of year. I found a lot of birds' nests in Sherwood last week, and they were all on the ground. There's birds like robins and garden warblers just very low to the ground, and yeah, a dog off the lead that's uncontrolled could easily disturb them and cause them to have a failed breeding attempt. So yeah, please watch out for that, and yeah, just be sensible when it comes to ground nesting birds. It's really important.
I mean, as a nation, we love our dogs. You
We
just
do.
saw Nancy, who came up for a quick cuddle then. She's great, but she, you know, she tears around the place like an absolute maniac. I've never seen a dog run so fast in my life. And she's just having, you know, a good time. And as much as I love her, there are certain areas at certain times of the year that they will never be off lead. It's just, you know, it's not about restricting her, it's about protecting biodiversity. So, you know, we do need to talk about keeping dogs on leads, you know, to protect things. You know, obviously hen harriers kind of in heathland, sometimes in quite like remote areas in those places. However, all grounding birds, you know, we've got curlew over here, skylarks that I mentioned earlier, all of this stuff is just literally around here. And I see dog walkers out all the time with dogs off the lead at this time of year. And it's something that's really, really sad, and we need to kind of get a grips with. As much as we love our dogs, we love our birds too, and it's about kind of loving our dogs, giving them freedom, but at the right time in the right places.
And it doesn't even have to be legislation. Sometimes if you do see a dog and if you feel like tearing through a woodland, like one of these two, then it doesn't have to be legislation that can stop you from saying, hey, would you mind putting your dog on lead, if you feel comfortable to do so. But yeah, it can just be a very, it can be a difficult thing, but obviously, you know, be respectful where you can. And yeah, we can help birds, and we can help all birds.
Now, there's one more question. There's one more question that's come in. 1 second.
Yes.
I have a poodle situation
Poodle
going on.
fight.
Excuse me.
There we go, all good.
Sorry
now.
everyone, talking about bad dogs, there are two right there for you who are currently arguing over a dandelion. So, sorry about that. There was one question that came in about kind of monitoring and fines and things like that. Is it possible to monitor hen harrier nests with the use of drones? Now, drones are fantastic, and they can be used. We use drones all the time in TV and getting amazing shots and things like this. However, drones are incredibly noisy and very, very obvious as well. So if we know where a hen harrier nest is and we put a drone up, you know, we're potentially alerting others of where that hen harrier nest is, which could be a problem. Drones could get shot down, so, you know, economically you could lose an expensive piece of kit at the same time. And also, obviously, you know, you have to fly it quite high above to make sure there's no disturbance whatsoever, because hen harriers on the ground, you know, can be incredibly sensitive too. So drones are a great idea for some areas and some species at some times, but in this case you're kind of, I think, probably more alerting you know, maybe the owners of a grouse moor, or you know, people like that, of where these animals could be. So it's, in that case, you know, as good as drones can be, it's not necessarily worth the risk, I think. But it's important to have these ideas though and keep coming up with suggestions, because the more suggestions we have, you know, something might come up that could potentially work and could really help. So always, if you have ideas on this kind of stuff, you can always send them in to us. In fact, you can send them into info@henharrierday.uk and keep those suggestions about conservation and everything else, including days like this, and keep the conversation going.
The more non-intrusive we can be, the better, because I think, you know, really cool like monitoring equipment like thermal imaging cameras have been so useful recently, just to monitor. I think there's a big project on jack snipe. And because obviously these are very small birds that kind of sit on the ground, and they're very hard to see unless you pretty much almost step on them. But with thermal imaging camera, you can just stand on a high point and look down, you see all these dots, and you've not disturbed them. So any way we can do that would be really good. And obviously drones might work for some species, but hen harriers, it might not be too practical. But another question I've actually got, what do you think the best time of year is to actually see hen harriers? Because obviously a lot of the time they're resident birds, and then sometimes they have these communal roosts. But what do you think, if someone wanted to see a hen harrier, what's the best time of year to go out and look, do you think?
I mean, it's when they're sky dancing, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're going to go see a hen harrier, you want to see it
in its glory.
prime.
You want to see its roller coasting
Tinder
profile, don't you?
Yeah, you want to see that. So you want to see that kind of towards the beginning of spring, towards the beginning when they start breeding and things like that. So I think spring's always a really good time to go see them. Actually, the end of summer can be good. I went at the end of summer and got some, you know, amazing sights as well, with the food passing and everything. By that time, you know, the chicks are getting, you know, older. And you know, and there's more kind of activity going on in that sense. So it depends, I guess, what behaviour you want to go and see. But, yeah, there's lots of ways you can kind of go and see them and go to areas, but obviously if you're going to these kind of sensitive areas and going to look for sensitive species, obviously it's important to do so respectfully. But yeah, definitely highly recommend it. What about you?
Yeah. Ooh, I mean, like, I quite like seeing them. I've never seen Skydancing, and I would love to see that. But I also quite like. I'd love to see like a group of them together. I know a friend of mine on Mull. He had a hen harrier roost last winter, and he was just stood on the road watching all these birds coming to roost. And he had like 6 or 7 all circling, all chattering with each other, and then just dropping down into a bit of willow scrub to roost. And I just thought, I'd really like to see that. It was similar to the swallows roosting in the reed beds. It's just obviously that concentration of birds all kind of knowing what they're doing, arriving at the same time every day. I just love that kind of routineness that some birds have when it comes to that. So I would quite like to see that as well, actually.
Can I come? That sounds pretty good.
Maybe.
Can I change my answer?
You've got to see a kingfisher first and then you can come.
I have seen it. I just not this particular one at this particular time. Anyway, we are coming to the end of our broadcast now. It's been a fantastic hour and a half, and I want to thank you for sticking with us and engaging with us and sending us your questions, thoughts and ideas. It's really important that we have events like this, and of course over the last couple of years it has been virtually, but this year things are starting to change a little bit, and you can actually host a Hen Harrier Day of your very own. You can choose a location. Obviously, you know, prior to COVID they were all over the country and it was fantastic, and you got to go to all these different events which were all a celebration with some really interesting talks with some really interesting people. So you could host your own Hen Harrier Day. That would be pretty good, wouldn't it? You know, you could find an event to support. If you can't host one, you could support one. Even attending one would be really good.
Yes.
But speaking of attending events, a bit of an announcement to make. So on July the 24th, we're having Hen Harrier Fest. Now this is going to be run by Wild Justice, along with some other incredible people as well. So you can attend. It's going to be in Cheshire. I was in the back of a meeting the other day when they were talking about it and kind of getting the ideas together. I can't say too much about it because it's yet to all be announced. But there's some really cool ideas, and it's going to be a really creative, really fun. There might be a bit of music, there might be a little bit of, you know, well, it's just good times. It's going to be really good fun. So if you can get your diaries out, put the 24th of July. It will be in Cheshire, and we will give you more information. So keep up to date on Wild Justice websites and our social medias, because we'll be posting about it the moment we know more. But put that date in your diary right now, because it will be a conservation day you don't want to miss.
It really will not be. I was supposed to go on the Isle of Mull on that day, and I found out Hen Harrier Fest was on there. I was like, nope, cancelling that trip.
You cancelled Mull for Hen Harrier Fest?
I can't. Yeah, so I'm doing one day less on Mull to go to Hen Harrier Fest, but so worth it. It's going to be such a good event, a very kind of family-based event. So yeah, it should be really good. So make sure you attend if you can. It'll be super, super cool. But yeah, like Megan said, we are coming to an end, but thank you so much for joining us. We've got some really cool special thank yous to do. Big thank you to Paul Samuels behind the monitor I'm watching, who's done a fantastic job of putting this all together and controlling the live stream, as well as Kate, who's in the kitchen watching all your comments and answering the questions and feeding them to us like the ones we just answered, as well as Jenny Shelton and all of the Hen Harrier Action team who have put this day together, put our scripts together and got all of the content and filmed it brilliantly and put it together so smoothly. So thank you all for your hard work. It's been so much fun. I've loved this.
Yeah, everyone's been absolutely brilliant, and putting this together is no easy feat. So
No,
honestly,
it
thank
really
you
isn't.
to everyone. Thank you very much to Nancy for causing some serious distraction and being a very, very bad animal who's ready to go on her walk, I think, pretty soon. So of course, get involved. There's links that you can donate to help conservation. Of course, all this is based upon fundraising. Those satellite tags that you just saw, those Nest cameras, everything is made possible because of your generosity. So if you can, I know obviously times are hard, but anything, any pennies, whatever, it all goes such a long way. So there's always ways to donate, get involved in conservation, send us in your ideas, like I said, and of course there's lots of other links in the bio of how you can get involved if you wish to do so. So thank you so much, and we're going to leave you again with the Stronghill song, Persecution of the Hen Harriers. Have a fantastic weekend, enjoy the sunshine, and yeah, have a lovely time. Maybe go out walking the dogs, have a cup of tea in the sun, I don't know.
Go see some goshawks.
Yeah, go see a hen harrier. That'd be cool, wouldn't it? Bye everyone.
Thank you everyone, see ya.
Dance with me, my ghost in grey. Our end is close most every day. Blue-grey circles in the sky. The future's bleak for you and I. Show me your sky dancing skills with pure ballet. Pass the kill to the ring trap me, shoot me down. Help me, hear me cry out loud. Hear the sound of distant guns. Something evil this way comes. Scorched earth now where once you flew. Grouse moors mean there's less of you. They hide the bodies, hide the tags, deeply buried in peat hags. Blinding truth is like a lantern, for they can never hide the pattern. They hunt me, trap me, shoot me down. Help me, hear me cry out loud. Wall of death for Circus Cyanus, holes with spring traps all around. Evil gunmen, they still await them, for the Skydancers are earthbound.
Moorland dwellers and their serfs are now known for their true worth. Clad in camouflage or tweeds, they try to hide their evil deeds.
With bellies full of lead and pies, their heads are empty except for lies. But who are we to criticize this rich man's game of genocide? Genocide.
They hold me, trap me, shoot me down. They hold me, trap me, shoot me down.
Help me, hear me cry out loud. Help me, hear me cry. Won't survive without your voice.